This is the Ielts listening test. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1.
You will hear a conversation between a guest and the receptionist at a hotel. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first. Good afternoon. My name is Kelvin Jones. I booked by internet yesterday.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. Welcome to the Armitage Hotel. Can you spell your first name for me, please?
Certainly. K-E-L-V-I-N.
Thank you. Do you have your booking number? Or perhaps you printed out your confirmation?
The guest's first name is Kelvin, so K-E-L-V-I-N has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5. Good afternoon. My name is Kelvin Jones. I booked by internet yesterday.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. Welcome to the Armitage Hotel. Can you spell your first name for me, please?
Certainly. K-E-L-V-I-N.
Thank you. Do you have your booking number? Or perhaps you printed out your confirmation?
Yes, of course. I don't have the printout, but I did remember to note down the number. It's OOL-238-1420.
Thanks. OOL-238-1420. Oh, I see you've stayed with us before.
Yes, on several occasions.
And do you still have the same vehicle registration number? HQW5919?
Well, no. This time I have the company car.
And what is the registration number?
Oh dear, I can't remember. Hang on a minute. Here it is on the keyring. HUV 3331.
Thanks. HUV 3331. Now, today's the 21st of May, and I see you've booked a deluxe room on the 5th floor, room 501.
Really? I booked a deluxe room? I usually only ever have a standard double room.
It's the off-season, Mr. Jones, and we've upgraded you.
How nice. And what does the deluxe room have? Is it as good as a suite?
Almost. It has all the usual, plus a spa bath, fully stocked bar fridge, a king-size bed and a balcony.
Is there a view from the balcony?
Yes.
Is that a view of the bay?
Yes, and a glimpse of the blue lagoon as well.
Very nice. I hope it'll be warm enough to sit out there.
We can't guarantee the weather, Mr. Jones, although we do try to make your stay as comfortable as possible.
Thank you. Now that you mention comfort, is it possible to have some extra pillows, please? I have a sore shoulder, you see, and I need to prop it up at night, or I don't get any sleep.
Well, you'll find pillows on the bed, of course, and we can send up a couple more later.
Well, I'd appreciate that.
One more thing. You paid by credit card over the internet. Can I see your credit card, please?
Oh, of course.
And some photo ID?
What would you like? Driver's license?
Yes, that's fine. You're staying for 5 days, is that right?
That was the original plan, yes. But the conference has been cut short by 2 days because the keynote speaker is ill. So I'll be going home on Wednesday.
So that's just 3 nights in all.
Afraid so. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Actually, there is. The conference is in a building called Chancery Chambers, but I don't have any idea how to get there.
Oh, that's the funny-shaped building on the corner of King and Richard Streets. It's quite straightforward, really, and only a few minutes' walk. Look, I'll show you on this map.
Good. A map. I like to follow a map if possible.
Right, well, step out the front entrance of the hotel and you're on Hobb Street. Head south on Hobb Street towards Gorse Lane and take the second on the left onto Vickers Street West. Go all the way down the hill past the Mexican Cafe on your left, the Rebel Hostel on your right, and the big church on the corner of Allen Street.
Oh, I think I know the one. It has a huge steeple.
Yes, you're right. When you get to the bottom of the hill, you'll have to cross over the main street.
What's the name of the main street?
Mill Street.
Mill Street. Ah, yes, there it is.
Cross the main street and continue on to Vickers Street East. There's a big bank next to a bookshop on the corner. Go up the hill towards the entrance to the park.
I've heard it's very beautiful.
Oh, yes. Well worth a look when you've got some free time. Anyway, don't go in the park. Turn left into Kitchen Street. You'll walk past Bowen's Bistro. Actually, probably the best place to get a good lunch at a reasonable price. After Bowen's, take the second left into Baker's Lane. It's a very short street. Then take the first on your left onto King Street, and you should see the Art Deco Chancery Chambers building a bit further along on the corner of Richard Street.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm most grateful.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
You are going to hear an interviewer who is interviewing Alan. He made a great discovery of Mungo National Park. First, look at questions 11 to 15. As you listen to the first part of the interview, answer questions 11 to 15.
An event occurred in 1996 over a period of 3 days that attracted considerable attention at the time and led to a new find in Mungo National Park, which is the focal point of the Willandra Lakes World Heritage Area in New South Wales, Australia. I talked to Alan Moore, the organizer of this trip, about his experience. Alan, what was the purpose of your trip?
Well, as you know, I love the outback and lead tours of people wanting to go into more remote parts of the country. However, I thought it was time for me too to have a holiday. So I packed up my family and we went to Mungo National Park.
Why did you choose this location?
It holds a record of Aboriginal life stretching back over 40,000 years. And of course, I wanted my young kids to be amazed by the main feature of the park, the remarkable Walls of China, as they're called, where wind and water erosion have exposed this long history.
I see. What was the weather like?
It was unusual for that time of year. The rain was just one continual downpour after another. We were always soaked to the skin. So we decided to cut our holiday short and only stayed 3 days in the end. However, it was eventful. The obvious problem was to get back to the nearest town, a small place called Burunga. But the dirt roads out there are always impassable after rain, so we settled down for a long, wet wait in the park. We didn't really mind because the scenery was so interesting. However, the kids wandered away without our noticing, and eventually we realized they must be lost. So we used our two-way radio to contact the park rangers and the police, and a helicopter was sent. Luckily, the kids were found within a few hours, but they'd made an important discovery.
Now look at questions 16 to 20. As the talk continues, answer questions 16 to 20.
So the trip was also eventful for another reason, wasn't it?
Yes. They led us to some ancient Aboriginal art. The kids had taken shelter in a very small, low cave that was difficult to see from the outside. We were lucky to have another family camping in our location. When they heard us calling the kids, they immediately helped us search for them, and as the hours went by, they also provided us with much-needed support and encouragement. We really appreciated their help, and as we were already soaked through after looking for the kids for a couple of hours, they even made sure we had enough dry clothes to wear. The park ranger managed to get through to us to lead the search, and when the helicopter pilot notified us by two-way radio that he'd seen the children but was unable to land nearby, we were able to eventually find them very excited about what was in their little cave.
And what did you think of their cave?
Well, after squeezing in, I must say I was impressed, and managed to take a few photos of it before we left. There were many faint markings and dots on the wall. It was difficult to tell what they represented because they were so small, but people from the museum who have since visited there said the markings were similar to some other findings in the area, and later confirmed they were very old. Although it's now a protected site, the children like to call it their cave, and are allowed to visit it when a ranger can go with them.
Thank you, Alan. If you go to Mungo National Park, you can see the entrance to the cave and some of Alan's photos at the ranger's station. Alan continues to lead tour groups in the outback, and if you want further information...
That is the end of part 2.
Now you have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You will hear a discussion between a professor and university students about online learning. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 27. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 27.
Good afternoon, everybody. As part of our education studies, we're going to continue our look at online learning and examine what it takes to be successful in this area. Perhaps I should start by asking you to answer the question. Yes, Edward?
Well, I guess one of the most important things for successful study would be discipline. I mean, you don't have to physically be in a class, so you'd have to really make sure you did your coursework.
Yes, this is correct. In fact, my first point relates directly to this. Make sure you regularly plan enough study and assignment time. I separate the two because although they relate, they're not exactly the same. With study time, you're focusing on general information as you plan for tests, but with assignments, you might be focusing on presenting more specific information. What else? Yes, Sylvia.
Well, it seems to me that before you even start studying, you should make a well-informed and carefully planned decision about which university you're going to study at.
Yes, I was going to say that too. It's important to work out where you're going to study first. And another thing you should consider is your career objective. Your course of study should relate to your job.
Absolutely correct. Once you've worked out where you want to study. Another thing to consider is your attitude towards study. You should build a positive attitude, take responsibility for your learning. Unlike regular classroom learning, no one will be there to stand over you and make sure that you do the work. As with regular learning, it's also important that you work hard in your own time to build your written and spoken language proficiency, as well as your ability to improve your analytical and logical reasoning. You should develop research skills which allow you to make the best use of your time. If you see something that might be helpful for an assignment, make a note of it.
What about note-taking skills? Would an online learner need well-developed skills in this area?
Good point, Pam. Lectures conducted online or via telephone will certainly require you to have good note-taking skills. Sometimes a copy of the lecture notes are available, but certainly you need to be able to take notes and write essays. They relate to your assignments. Another point often not considered is physical health. We all understand that physical health relates to mental health. Take care of your body by doing exercise and eating well, and you'll do better in your studies. My last point is simply to enjoy the experience. Learning should be fun. If you've put in the time to decide upon the best course for you, then enjoy yourself. Those who enjoy their course of study are those who will typically do well. So students should choose their course well.
Before you listen to the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 28 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer questions 28 to 30.
I'd now like to discuss the assignment for this part of our coursework. Firstly, the assignment is due in 3 weeks. I've reserved information for you at the library. Speak to Carol and tell her you're in the education class. She'll allow you access to the materials I've reserved.
Professor, can we borrow them from the library?
Some of them can be borrowed, but only overnight because other students may need to have access to them. You'll have to complete an overnight sign-out form.
What about the length of the assignment?
No less than 1,500 words, and please, no more than 2,000.
What about the format?
I want that double-spaced and in Arial 12-point font. If you have any other questions, remember to either call my office or you might like to email me. My email address is...
That is the end of part 3.
You now have 30 seconds to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
You will hear a talk on research in the Indian Ocean. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
In this, the first lecture in our series on the changing face of the oceans of the world, we are going to look at the Indian Ocean, into which the Oceanography Department at the Institute here in Australia has been doing pioneering research over the past 5 years. Let us start with some facts about the Indian Ocean to give you an idea of the scope and complexity of the enterprise we have undertaken. As you can see from the diagrams here on the screen, showing the relative size of the planet's 5 oceans, the Indian Ocean comes third after the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, but is larger than the Southern Ocean and the Arctic Ocean. On this slide, you can see that the Indian Ocean is different from the 2 larger oceans in that it is landlocked to the north and does not extend into the cold regions of the North Pole. Covering some 73,440,000 square kilometres, the ocean constitutes approximately 1/7 of the Earth's surface and about 20% of the world's total ocean area. At the equator, it is around 6,400 kilometres wide, with the average depth being about 3,400 metres, and with the deepest point being the Java Trench at 7,450 metres. Flowing into the Indian Ocean, we have some of the world's greatest rivers. The Zambezi here, the Ganges here, the Indus, the Brahmaputra and the Tigris-Euphrates just here. The 2 largest islands in the Indian Ocean, Madagascar, here off the coast of Africa, and Sri Lanka, here off the southern tip of India, are structurally parts of the continents of Africa and Asia, while islands like the Seychelles are exposed tops of submerged ridges. The Maldives are low coral islands, and Mauritius and Réunion are volcanic cones. The surface waters of the ocean are warm, except where the ocean touches the cold waters to the south. A network of scientists, mainly oceanographers and meteorologists from around the world, are monitoring changes in the ocean's temperature and acidity, especially where it meets the Southern Ocean, in order to see how global warming is having an effect on the waters there. An assessment is also being carried out on how this is impacting on low-lying habitats and peoples in the more populated coastal regions around the rim of the ocean. In the warmer north, islands are vulnerable to even the subtlest changes in sea levels and tides, so they are being closely watched. Moreover, a close eye is being kept on wind changes, especially alterations to the monsoon rains, typhoons, cyclones, and any other natural phenomena. In addition to the information sent from the ship that we have stationed off Antarctica, in the south of the Indian Ocean, data are being transmitted round the clock from buoys anchored at various points around the ocean. 5 of these buoys are observing ice packs and icebergs coming into the Indian Ocean from Antarctica. Besides the buoys, data on cloud cover and wind and temperature change are received by satellite. Satellite images are also being used to record the size of the icebergs from the moment they break off from Antarctica. Their course is then mapped as they move out into the Southern Ocean. Here at the Institute, the raw data from the various sources are received and the information is then constantly processed by a bank of computers. Once the data have been collated, the next step in the process is the analysis by experts here and at centres around the world, looking for even the slightest shift in patterns of temperature, wind, and sea levels. In the light of the fact that this is a global enterprise, the Institute is staffed 24 hours a day with researchers working in shifts, and we are in constant contact with centres all around the world. In total, 900 experts from around the globe are involved in the programme. The work at the Institute is now into the 5th year of a 10-year data collection, which began in 2003. The analysis of the 5 years to 2008 will be published early in 2009. However, changes in patterns are already being noticed since the data have been gathered.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.